Have you ever sat in a crowded room, like maybe a really bustling coffee shop or a busy train station, and just closed your eyes for a second?
Oh yeah, it's actually incredibly overwhelming if you focus on it.
Right. Because if you actually pay attention to what is hitting your body in that exact moment, it is absolute chaos.
Utter chaos.
You've got the hiss of the espresso machine, the clatter of a dropped spoon, the smell of the roasted beans, the cold blast from the AC unit, the feeling of the hard wooden chair against your back, plus the visual glare of sunlight bleeding through your eyelids.
Yeah, it's just this infinite chaotic flood of parallel information hitting you all at once.
Exactly. But somehow you don't lose your mind. You just calmly sip your latte and think, I need to answer that email. And I mean, how do you pull off that magic trick?
That is the big question.
It is. And the answer lies in a single, rather dense German phrase from our source material today. The phrase is Bewusstsein heißt, diffuse Signale in Reihe zu bringen.
Which translates roughly to consciousness means bringing diffuse signals into a series.
Right. So the mission for our deep dive today is to deconstruct this one very specific idea. We're looking at a stack of philosophical and scientific texts that all argue essentially that consciousness isn't some, mystical glowing spirit hovering inside your skull.
Right, it's not magic.
No. Instead, it is a highly mechanical operational act. It's the act of taking the chaotic, infinite, multi-dimensional noise of the universe, all those diffuse signals, and violently forcing them into a neat, manageable, single-file line.
What's fascinating here is why this matters for you, the listener. I mean, we live in a world completely defined by information overload. We're constantly bombarded by data, pings, parallel streams of content.
Absolutely, nonstop.
Yeah. So understanding how your own brain acts as the ultimate bottleneck or filter, how it literally constructs your reality by actively ignoring almost everything, it kind of changes how you view your own thoughts and your relationship with technology and even the actual mechanics of reality itself.
Okay, let's unpack this. We're going to look at this idea through three distinct lenses today. We've got neurobiology, systems theory, and finally psychoanalysis and the cosmos.
A pretty massive roadmap.
Yeah, we're covering some ground today. Let's start with the biological hardware, though. How does our brain physically pull off this bottlenecking? Our sources point to the work of a German brain researcher named Ernst Puppel.
Yeah, Puppel.
Yeah.
He argues that the brain is fundamentally a serialization machine. And he proves it by looking at a massive, mechanical problem that our bodies face with sensory input.
The problem of speed, right?
Exactly. The problem is speed. So imagine someone drops a coffee mug across that cafe we were talking about.
Okay.
You see the mug shatter, you hear the crash, and maybe a drop of hot coffee splashes on your leg. If you measure the actual physics of that moment, those signals hit your body at a completely different time.
Because light travels vastly faster than sound.
Right. The visual data hits your retina basically instantly. But the sound wave of the crash takes, a fraction of a second longer to reach your ear.
Makes sense.
And then the physical sensation of the hot coffee, that has to physically travel up the nervous system from your leg, up your spinal cord, and all the way to your brain.
So if we just experienced reality completely raw as it arrived, the world would feel totally out of sync. It'd be like watching a badly dubbed movie, where the lips move before the dialogue actually happens.
Yeah, you'd be totally disoriented. You couldn't function. But
Helpful.
discover the specific mechanism the brain uses to fix this. It collects these overlapping out-of-sync signals and holds them in a buffer.
Like a video loading on the internet.
Basically, yeah. He found that the brain creates tiny time windows of about 30 milliseconds. It waits for that 30-millisecond window to close, gathers whatever signals arrived in that time frame, the flight, the sound, the touch, and binds them together to declare, okay, an event has happened.
Wait. If the brain is holding information in a 30-millisecond buffer before presenting it to me, that means my experience of right now is actually a delayed broadcast. I'm literally living in the past.
You are always living in the past. Always. Consciousness literally requires a delay. And Puppel goes even further. The brain doesn't just stop at 30 milliseconds.
It doesn't.
No, it takes those tiny 30-millisecond event chunks and strings them together into larger units of about 3 seconds.
3 seconds.
Yeah. That 3-second window is what creates our subjective experience of the present moment, the now.
Oh, wow.
And it's no coincidence that 3 seconds is roughly the length of a typical human breath or a line of spoken poetry or even a musical motif.
So the brain is artificially buffering the simultaneous chaos of the world and stringing it into a temporal sequence. It's almost like it's like a bouncer at a really crowded club door, right? Taking this chaotic mob of people and just forcing them into a single file line so they can actually enter the building.
That's a great way to look at it, because without this artificial serialization, this aggressive forcing of things into a row, we would drown. We'd drown in a permanent, diffuse state of sensory noise. The physical world is parallel, but consciousness is serial.
Okay, I understand the biology of the delay, but I'm going to push back on how it feels.
Okay, go for it.
Because even if my brain is buffering things into a 3-second window, it still really feels to me like I'm experiencing the world all at once. Like I see the coffee cup, I feel the heat of it, and I hear the cafe music simultaneously. I don't feel like I'm processing them in a line.
Right.
It feels like there's a central screen in my head where everything just seamlessly plays out together. How does philosophy explain that illusion?
Well, that feeling is incredibly persuasive, I agree. But the philosopher Daniel Dennett takes an absolute sledgehammer to it.
Oh, nice.
In his 1991 book, Consciousness Explained, Dennett calls the illusion you just described the Cartesian theater.
The Cartesian theater, like a tiny little me sitting in a control room watching a movie screen.
Exactly. It's the false but very intuitive belief that all sensory pathways converge on a single anatomical endpoint in the brain, a central stage where your vision, your hearing, your thoughts all perfectly sync up for a central you to witness.
But anatomically, we know for a fact that's not true. I mean, vision is processed in the back of the head, hearing is on the sides, decision-making is up front. There is no central stage.
Not at all. The brain's physical hardware is totally decentralized. It's highly parallel. So Dennett proposes what he calls the multiple drafts model instead.
Multiple drafts.
Yeah.
Like writing an essay.
Sort of.
Mm.
Imagine countless neuronal processes happening all at once across your brain. They're constantly drafting different parallel interpretations of reality. So one network is analyzing the shape of the coffee cup, another is tracking the background music, another is worrying about your email, and they're all competing.
So how do we get a single stream of consciousness out of all those competing drafts if there's no central theater?
Through what Dennett calls a virtual serial machine. He also sometimes calls it a Joycean machine, referring to James Joyce's stream of consciousness writing. Think of it like software running on the parallel hardware of a computer. This virtual machine acts as the ultimate bottleneck. It takes all those parallel drafts floating around your brain and forces them into a single logical sequence. The draft that wins gets serialized into your active stream of thought.
Huh. So the feeling I have of seamless simultaneity
Is just the smooth, rapid operation of this virtual machine continuously updating the series.
So it's taking the multidimensional data of the brain and basically flattening it into a one-dimensional timeline.
Flattening is a really good word for it. It reduces the immense complexity of reality into something you can actually use to make a decision.
Which naturally brings us to our own internal thoughts. Because if biology uses a bottleneck to create meaning from physical noise, what happens when we look at our own thoughts and the abstract systems we build? The narrative kind of moves here from the physical brain to abstract systems.
Right. And this is where the sociologist Niklas Luhmann comes in, along with the theorist Dirk Becker. Luhmann is fascinating because he strips away the biology entirely. Yeah, he looks at consciousness purely as an operational system. He states that the psychic system, which is his formal term for consciousness, is entirely defined by seriality. You cannot think two thoughts exactly at the same time.
Wait, I feel like I'm always multitasking my thoughts, though. Like right now I'm thinking about what you're saying about Lumen, but I'm also, actively thinking about what I'm going to have for lunch later.
You might be rapidly task switching between the two, bouncing back and forth in milliseconds.
Oh, okay.
But operationally, you cannot think them truly simultaneously. One thought must follow another. Luhmann points out that the world outside our minds is infinitely complex and intensely contingent. If we tried to process every possibility simultaneously, we would be paralyzed.
So consciousness acts as what, like a reduction valve?
Precisely a reduction valve. Meaning is created by selecting one single option and violently excluding all the others. You can't utter a sentence without excluding thousands of other words you could have potentially used.
So what does this all mean, especially regarding modern technology? Because if meaning comes from forcing massive amounts of diffuse data into a sequence, we have to talk about AI.
We do.
When I look at large language models today, that is exactly what they do. The text mentions this concept of the unject, a simulated AI.
Yeah, the unject.
Right. An AI processes millions of parallel parameters and then spits out words one by one on a screen. Does that mean the AI is conscious, since it's doing the exact same serialization we are?
It mimics the output perfectly, but the system theorist Peter Fuge coined the term unject to clarify this. An unject is an entity that participates in communication without actually having a consciousness.
But how? How does it participate if it's not conscious?
Look at how an AI actually processes data. It takes millions of parallel diffuse parameters, weights, representing relationships across thousands of dimensions that no human could ever hold in their head.
Right, the vector space.
Exactly. It holds that massive multidimensional shape, and then it forces a path through it, predicting the mathematical probability of the next token, word after word after word.
It collapses the multidimensional shape into a single file line of text.
It completely maskers the law of the series. It understands syntax and probability flawlessly. But it completely lacks understanding of the diffuse input itself. It just executes the algorithm. It is serialization without true meaning.
So it's simulating the friction of the bottleneck without actually feeling it.
Exactly.
Okay, that makes human beings seem incredibly messy by comparison. Because if an AI can perfectly and cleanly execute this series, why are we so chaotic? We stumble over our words, we have intrusive thoughts, we feel things we can't possibly articulate. Why is it so hard for us?
To understand human messiness, our sources turn to psychoanalysis, specifically Jacques Lacan. Lacan explores the clash between chaos and order that happens inside the human mind. He divides experience into different registers, and the tension here is between what he calls the imaginary and the symbolic.
Let's break those down. What is the imaginary? I assume it's not just like having a vivid imagination.
No, not at all. For Lacan, the imaginary is the realm of images, reflections, and raw emotions. It is inherently nonlinear, timeless, and completely diffuse. It's a chaotic flood of visual signals where everything exists everywhere all at once.
A holistic flood. And the symbolic is the opposite of that.
The symbolic is the realm of language and code. And as we've established, language is strictly serial. You cannot speak two words at the exact same time. They absolutely must form a chain.
Okay, let me try an analogy here to see if I grasp the friction between these two.
Go for it.
It sounds like waking up from a really wild, chaotic dream. In the dream, which I guess would be the imaginary, everything's happening simultaneously. It's a multidimensional experience. But then you wake up and you try to explain it to a friend over breakfast. And the moment you force it into a sequence of words, well, first I was in a house and then a dog was there. It just sounds stupid. It loses its magic the moment you force it into a sequence.
That is a perfect analogy.
Yeah.
You aren't just losing the magic. Your brain is actively having to destroy the parallel data to make it fit the bottleneck of language. And Lacan has a profound conclusion here. He says consciousness only happens at the fractal line where the symbolic colonizes the imaginary.
It's a fractal line.
Yeah. It is the act of forcing that diffuse, emotional, visual chaos into an ordered linguistic line.
Which explains why trying to articulate a really deep emotion is so frustrating. We're trying to squeeze a parallel network of feelings through the tiny sequential tube of vocabulary. But how does this connect to media? Because the text brings in Friedrich Kittler here.
Right, the media theorist Friedrich Kittler. He shows how this exact same friction plays out in our technology. He contrasts continuous streams of media with discrete algorithms.
Like a continuous stream would be a gramophone record. Or film noise.
Exactly. A gramophone needle records the real, messy, continuous sound of a room. It captures the diffuse noise of reality in a continuous nonlinear wave. But Kittler points out that these continuous streams are only brought under control, only made calculable by discrete algorithms, like the typewriter.
The typewriter, because it forces the flow into individual keystrokes.
Exactly. The typewriter forces the continuous flow of a writer's thought into discrete, separate sequential hits. Just like language forces a dream into a sentence, the typewriter imposes the symbolic order onto the imaginary flow.
Man. We've gone from the wet biology of the brain to AI to the psychoanalysis of dreams and typewriters. But here's where it gets really interesting.
Oh, yeah.
Our sources suggest we zoom out as far as we possibly can, because if this bringing into series governs our brains, our words, and our machines, what does it mean for our place in the universe?
This is where the text crosses over into a highly speculative, almost mystical angle. It asks us to view the universe as a purely diffuse, infinitely dimensional quantum superposition.
Let's unpack quantum superposition for a second. We're talking about pure potential, right? Where there is no space or time.
Right. Imagine the universe where all possibilities exist simultaneously. Everything is connected to everything else all at once. In this model, consciousness acts as a holographic projector that breaks this field.
Wait, it breaks the field?
Yes. By taking these infinite simultaneous signals and forcing them into a series, consciousness literally invents delay. It invents time, and it invents causality.
Because without the series, there is no before and after.
Exactly. Without this serial delay, the text argues, the universe would explode in one infinitely loud, blinding flash of everything happening at once, and then immediately die in the coldness of total simultaneity.
Wow.
Yeah. By putting things in a row, we create the delay that allows existence to actually unfold.
But wait, if the series is what keeps the universe from exploding, why do we resist machines so much? We said earlier that machines have perfected the series. They don't have our messy friction. Shouldn't we love them for that? Shouldn't we want to be them?
That is the ultimate question, and the text answers it with its final, most poignant argument. It says that true life is defined by exactly what cannot be completely serialized. Humanity exists in the breaks of the series.
The breaks. You mean when the sequence stops?
Yes. Moments of profound intuition, mysticism, ecstasy, deep love, or even existential pain. In those moments, the strict timeline ruptures and the wild, diffuse noise of infinity floods our system.
We can't put those moments into words.
No, we can't. And we call these ruptures either enlightenment or we call them madness. But it's where we actually feel alive.
So, to summarize this incredible journey for everyone listening, we are all basically walking algorithms. We're biological and symbolic timekeepers, forcing the infinite parallel noise of the cosmos into a neat, understandable timeline.
We are the ultimate bottleneck. But I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over, building purely on this premise about hunas versus machines.
Please do.
If true humanity lives in the chaotic breaks of this series, like love, art, and intuition, and machines have perfected the strict law of the series, then our modern obsession with becoming maximally productive, perfectly organized, and scheduled down to the minute. It's kind of tragic.
We're trying to be the machine.
Exactly. It's an attempt to become the very machines we fear,
Yeah.
while actively running away from the chaotic noise where real human emotion actually lives.
Wow. Thank you so much for joining us on this custom deep dive. And for you listening, maybe look at the noise of your own life a little differently today. Maybe the chaos isn't a problem to be solved. Maybe it's just proof that you're human. Catch you next time.